Okay, welcome to Chapter 7. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk this time about developing software products like programs in-house or even purchasing those, and we'll kind of compare those two. Your activity will have you comparing those two. So I've cut out some of the slides in here. I want to get through this and let you get to your activity and do this. This is activity won't take a long time, but you'll have to put a little thought into it. So we are trying to define some of this and see what we're going to be doing to work with this, and you can read the objectives when you have a chance. So what is outsourcing? Well, it's when you hire people outside of the organization to do work for you. It's commonly done. I don't know of any company that doesn't do some of this. I can't believe all products or all services can be done in-house. So these are the different types of outsourcing. Some of this can be expensive. Some of this can be developed in-house. There's obviously pros and cons to doing both. You all have probably heard about outsourcing or insourcing or self-sourcing. And we will discuss that as we continue through this. Again, fees can be high. They can be a subscription. Back when I had a business or when I managed a department of an organization, we outsourced a lot of services, networking and everything else, just because, when I say networking, I mean networking for the organization. We actually did networking for customers, but we outsourced. The city actually handled what we were working on, so internal wise and everything. Lots of issues and problems with outsourcing. Obviously, you get what you bought, good or bad, you get what you bought. And that can become a major concern when you're trying to satisfy the customer. For instance, if you have an organization and your job is to install network, the internet in people's homes, and if you outsource that, which a lot of companies do, most of the cable companies do that. They'll outsource. They have some people that work for only them, and they outsource this to other people. And so when you outsource, you sometimes have issues, and you have problems with that. The crew doesn't show up on time. They don't look professional. They may say or do something that's not good. So this can become an issue, a huge issue. Offshore outsourcing is obviously going outside of the boundaries of the U.S., going overseas. And you do that mainly for cost. Wages are considerably lower in other places of the world, so you can hire people, even pay them more than they're making there, and still pay them half of what you pay people in America. There are lots of concerns with this. You can imagine a few jobs going outside of the U.S., and this is not the platform to discuss this now, but you can see some of the problems involved with this right now. Not only that, but security. In-house, on the other hand, you get what you want. You can listen. You have the people. You hire the people. They work for you. They can do what they're supposed to do, and you have a lot of oversight on this right now. So you need to make a decision. Do you keep it in-house, or do you send it out? Cost can be a factor. Loyalty can be a factor. It can just go on and on and on. You're going to decide that as part of your activity. So you make or buy, and that's what we'll talk about. The software package, if you buy, again, $300,000 or $400,000 is not terribly expensive. It is to us, but not for large companies. Sometimes spend years. The people that develop these software programs spend years developing these, and they pay a lot of money, a lot of creation cost. They pay royalties to other entities for this, and you can just imagine where this can be, where this can go. So some of the reasons for doing it in-house, I've discussed just a few, but you can look at the bullets up here. And you can kind of get an idea. Again, you're going to regurgitate some of this later as we develop this. The biggest thing that you can get with developing it in-house is you can tweak this hourly or even daily as it needs to be. You have the people right there that work for you. They can massage the program into doing what you want it to do. If there's any changes, any kind of security issues, then they're always there, and they know what the company wants. Also, too, it will easily migrate into what you already have because maybe they developed that also. Buying it outside, then typically it costs less. But now that cost can sometimes has to be factored in with different things on what you're looking at. For instance, if you were wanting to do something like in this class, then you would buy or purchase a program or something, unless you're a programmer. Your time is valuable, and so if you say, well, I'm a programmer, I can write a program to do something. It gets terribly expensive for time, and sometimes we don't count our own time, but it needs to be. Our own time is valuable, and so you have to program that in to see what makes sense on this. And again, I'm not going to read these to you. You can look through here and see. The book also elaborates on this. There's also an in-between option. You can buy software packages that you can actually customize. So that may be a little bit of both worlds there. You buy the package and you customize it to you. And that's typically how quite a bit of stuff is done right now. Companies obviously that sell these packages want you to need them, so they're going to put something in there that will cause you to come back to them. But again, this is all negotiated up front, and you have to make a decision on what costs less. I'll discuss that in just a little bit. Creating applications and the interface. Interface can be a big issue. I've had more problems. Again, I'm not programmed in years, but trying to make everything work can be a big issue because of what you had. Biggest problem is if you have legacy equipment trying to use today's software. You all know that from computers you've tried to use. If you have an old PC and you try to put today's programs like Visio and Project that you're using, a lot of graphic intense programs operate well with today's computers, but now when you start looking at yesterday's computers, then it doesn't operate well, just because it doesn't have the graphical power and stuff that today's computers do. So this is just creating stuff in-house. Form Wizard, if this were a database or this is done in Microsoft Access, by the way, then you would design forms in-house for this. So what does the system analyst do? He or she, then they have to evaluate this, and it has to be smart. They have to look at a payback analysis and a return on investment. You go, well, if I buy a program, if I keep it in-house, and then all it costs me is my labor, and my labor is already there, so I'll do that instead of spending $300,000 for a program. And again, that's not considering time. You have to look at what it costs you to keep those people, and you have to look at what percentage of their time. So if you have 5 people working on a project, and they're making $50,000 a year each, then for a year, then you have $125,000 that it's costing you, plus overhead, plus their benefits and everything. So this could easily be $200,000 when it's all said and done for 1 year. And so then you have to look and see what it costs to maintain that. And then that'd be the following year, and then the following year, and then the following year. Or you can buy the program for $500,000. So you have to decide on what you're looking at. And I've asked you to calculate an ROI. I'll get to that in a little bit. But you need to see what's your return on investment. It's important that you satisfy this. Let me give you another analogy. Business owners sometimes don't value their time. They don't pay themselves. They say, well, whatever's left over is mine. Yeah, that's not a good way to look at it. What business owners should do is to give themselves a salary. That way, if they ever decide to hire or upgrade or do anything else, then they know what their business is costing. Taking what's left over is never a good thing to do. Same thing when you buy or develop a software package. You have to decide on what that's going to cost. Let me give you another for instance. If you're an ISP, Internet Service Provider, you have a large router, a Cisco router is commonly used. You may pay whatever dollars for that router. You also have a maintenance cost for that, upgrades and for people to come out. And you don't want to hire someone that's Cisco certified. If you're a small ISP, that person's going to cost you $100,000 plus a year. So you can pay $5,000 a year to Cisco for maintenance throughout the year. So all that has to be calculated in, and you have to develop something in order to do that with. So analyzing cost in business, and I'd like you to look at this right here, and this is really important. The cost of doing nothing. That costs money. It also saves money. It could save money by not doing anything. And you have to look at the lost opportunity right here by not doing anything. That's really important when it comes to developing business. And I want you all to really wrap your head around this. Read this chapter carefully because you can apply this to your own personal lives, not just your business lives. Sometimes it's best to do nothing, and sometimes it's not best to do nothing. You can take a 10-year-old car, and you don't have enough money to buy a new car or even another car, yet your car is dying. It's slowly wearing out. It's got a couple 100,000 miles on it, and you're putting money into it. You have to calculate what that car is going to cost you to operate for the next 5 years. And then you'd have to see what it costs you to trade and maybe make car payments for 5 years. And those, you have to factor out that you've had your car for 20 years, or that your car is getting old and it doesn't look nice anymore. You have to factor some of that out and get back to what does it cost to maintain this vehicle for the next 5 years or 3 years or whatever you decide. Where people lose money and where they don't make good decisions is sometimes they will keep feeding money to that old beater, that old car. They'll keep feeding money to it for 5 years, and by the end of the 5 years they could have bought a new car by just the amount of money they put into that. Now you can also get into the cost of finance cost. What does it cost me to buy a new car? What is my interest on this loan going to be? You have to factor that in also. But this is really important. I hope you can really understand what we're talking about here. So you end up with a cost-benefit analysis checklist. What does it cost me, and what are my benefits? Again, another analogy is you go shopping for clothes and you come back and you go, wow, I saved. I had great bargains today, so I saved $450 I saved on clothes based on all the sales. Yet you spent $1,000. So you still have to look at the cost of what it did. What benefit did you get? And you have to look at this when you're buying, when you're outsourcing and doing everything. So how do you do that? You're going to acquire software. What do you do? Well, step one, evaluate what you're working on. You develop an RFP, and then you have companies bid. And have to look and see what you need when you're developing this RFP. You don't want to sell yourself short. If you're going to need a certain program, you want it to be able to grow. And you're evaluating now. Your 3 vendors up here. You're evaluating. This is unweighted, and I say unweighted, which means, for instance, if you look at all your grades that you all as students, you can say, well, I got hundreds on all my quizzes, but on my exam I got, because I got hundreds on my quizzes, then I just blew my exam off, or I missed a quiz, therefore I'll take the exam in lieu of this. They're weighted differently. And the same thing with vendors. You have to weight vendors. The best price is not always the best price. Just because you have the lowest cost from one vendor, then it doesn't mean that that's going to be the best one to go with. There's other factors you have to weight, as we will discuss later. So, identifying the vendors and outsourcing options, lots of ways to get those. When you get your vendors and you've put out an RFP, then you evaluate the alternatives. You develop what is called a benchmark, and a benchmark is a standard, and this standard is where you want everyone to achieve. So you may have a set of minimum requirements. It's easy then if you get, and I showed 3 vendors, and it's very likely that you will have, if your company is large enough, it's likely that you'll have 35 or 40 vendors that are going after this job. Very likely. So you have to really have some standards in there, and then if you have minimum standards, you can throw the ones out that don't meet those right away and start factoring down. So you do the cost-benefit analysis with these. Who can give you the best for the lowest price? You make a recommendation. Now these are the systems analysts would do this. Make a recommendation, and then you get out of it. Once you make this right now, you get out of it, and someone else makes a decision. You may be empowered to make that decision, and if it does, you need to really approach this objectively. In other words, don't hire your buddy. Make sure you approached everything objectively, and because you may have to support that one day. If I'm the CEO of a company and you are my system analyst, and I'm giving you the authority to buy and sell, and you hire your buddy and things go south, then I'm coming after you. And so that needs to be the way we all look at this. So you have a formal system requirement document, and then you prepare it, you brief it to the whoever, the general manager, the board of directors, whoever you brief it to. Then you implement it. Once you get all of this, you bring it in and do this. So you have everything that you need, and then similar to a contract, then you present to management. Make sure you objectively give this to them. Keep your personality out of it. Keep your comments out of it. Just state the facts. Once management gives the decision, then you guys agree on a timetable, and then you go from there. And then you transition in, and then we've talked about the logical and physical designs before, so you kind of bring this back into the system. Now let's talk about your activities that you're going to be doing. We'll stop with this right now. I'll summarize what we've talked about a little bit and then move on out. I'd like you to do 2 things. One is that you'll do in-house versus purchase. I want a half a page, 3/4 of a page of narrative on what you would do. Keep your stuff factual. Please don't regurgitate what the book said. You will put this on your own words based on the criteria that I've given you in your activity. But I want you to develop a matrix and show an ROI in this. Go out 5 years. What does it cost, and what are the benefits for developing it in-house and buying it? Now, buying it's simple. You can just you develop your matrix in-house and then tell me what it costs to buy, and that would determine your ROI. So look at your costs for 5 years and look at your benefits for 5 years. So put a little time into this, and that's an example of the headers that I want for your Excel spreadsheet. And please do this in Excel. And this is not an Excel class, but I expect you to use some kind of rudimentary functions, and certainly for the ROI. So read about that a little bit and look at it. Contact me with questions, and I'd be glad to help you with this. So we have talked about. I didn't go into software as a service. Again, you can read about that in your book. We just didn't have enough time to get done what I wanted to get done. I'm 20 minutes into this now. I want to close out pretty soon. So your task for this chapter is to determine whether you're going to build or buy, and then what the systems analyst's role is in doing all of this. Put a little time into financial analysis, the ROI. I didn't ask you for net present value. There's if you look in your book or you look at, well, actually you won't see these at all, but there's another hook to this right now called the NPV. I didn't have you do that, so it's not necessary. And then what steps do you need to make involved in this right now, and then what is the deliverable of what you did. So good chapter. Again, I use this chapter in my own life, so I would suggest you do the same. So that's all I have. Good day.